How you doing? Good?
Yeah. How are you?
I think I'm good.
Oh,
Sky made me come to this meeting.
I love the hesitation. That was awesome.
I never know.
Good.
He's working so hard, he hasn't been able to shave in weeks.
Shaved this morning.
hard
What are you
work
talking
looks
about?
good on
What's that?
The hard work looks good on you.
Just keeps your face a little warm when you ski. I don't want to be like Chris. And my wife loves that I can do something that makes me look even older than I am.
How is your wife?
She's good.
No more problems?
Problems, lots of problems, but even with her back, nah, she's good.
Everyone doing today? It's awfully quiet in here.
Fine now that you're here.
Liven it up. It sounds real.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Now, until 7, or 12.
So we need stuff.
Nope, we're good.
Hi, Jasmine. It's 3:05 and I'm calling the January 31st, 2024. It's 2024, another year. Regular meeting of the Economic Development Advisory Board into meeting. We'll begin with welcomes. Welcome, that was it. Welcome. Begin with introductions. And I'd like to start, Jasmine, with you. And then we'll go to Camille and Alyssa. And I think right now that's all who is joining us online.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Duncan. I'm the mayor of Castle Valley and non-voting member of this board.
Wonderful. Camille, could you introduce yourself and tell us your affiliation?
Hi, yeah, I'm Camille Otto. I'm with the Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments, recently rebranded as CERTA, Southeastern Regional Development Agency. A lot of long names there. And I manage the revolving loan fund program.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you're on the agenda for next month, I understand. Did you know that?
I think so. I think I did.
Okay, Lisa?
Elisa Martin, Grand County Planning and Zoning Director.
Wonderful. Glad you're with us. At this point, required by law, anyone to declare conflicts of interest? None. Disclosures? None. Ex parte communications? None. Citizens to be heard? Or presentations? None. So we move to our agenda items, our topics, primarily discussion with a few action items on the agenda. So we'll begin with the approval of the minutes of October 25, 29, and December 13. That's October 25, November 29, December 13. I assume we can approve these collectively rather than individually?
Yeah.
So if I could have a motion and a second to approve them, and then we can have any discussion required.
I move to approve all of the meeting notes that have been sent out
Thank
for
you.
this meeting.
Second it.
Thanks, Shaylee. We've missed you. Thanks for coming back. That's okay. You're busy.
I'm good now.
Okay. Oh, you're always good, I'm sure. Next agenda item then is an update on trail to tomorrow.
Okay, and can I give a few other things too, Forrest, just to bring everyone up to speed on the
You may,
department?
as
Okay.
long as I have the prerogative of calling for a vote on the approval of the minutes. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. It's done.
Okay. So first, welcome to Gabe, Ashley. It's great to have you here. Just a lot's happened since we last met. I'll just go through them quickly. The first was attended the 100 Years of Film celebration at the Capitol with our film commissioner and my wife Lynn. That's integral because there, as many of you know, there is the sunset on the film incentive at the end of 2024. Our director of the film commission has worked very closely to through the commission to work with the lobbyists to make sure this is front and center, that we try and extend the incentive. The vote has been pushed off. It was supposed to happen 2 days ago. It still hasn't happened in the House. So, and there's a legislative dinner tomorrow night where our director will be attending with 3 commissioners, Hadler, McGann, and Winfield. I believe Commissioner Winfield will be getting an award for his support. But this continues to be something that is very important to Grand County, is that incentive. We would like to see that continue because it supports the film industry in the area. Also, we were asked by the state to host the French delegation down here for a document signing. You may have seen that they were in Salt Lake to do a sister agreement with Salt Lake as host cities of the Olympics. They then brought their entourage down here to sign a best practices memorandum of understanding. They toured Arches and Dead Horse State Park and did a document signing where they, with very much the same issues over tourism and having a region that's very popular, are trying to understand responsible recreation, getting sustainable tourism and balancing those effects. After that, we had the Trail to Tomorrow second round of the team here running meetings. We had 7 user forums, 2 user community forums, a great deal of feedback from the community, especially in specific areas. It's gonna be like naming the 7 dwarfs. I'll name 5 and not all 7, but we had active transportation, we had entrepreneurship, we had arts and entertainment, soft recreation, meaning the non-motorized,
Cultural resources.
cultural resources, and we have it on our trail tomorrow. We have it on Grand County Connects, but
Creative community?
yeah, so creative community. And just a note of, recognition is we had our Vista leave us right before the end of the year. And the Vista's role was, designed to be an integral part of the strategic plan and doing a lot of the detail work. So that left a big gap and Sky jumped right in and, she has kept that thing, seamless and on track. So a big note of recognition to Sky White, who is also now our Assistant Director of Economic Development and just continues to be awesome. So I think that's the update. Are there any questions?
Do we have firm dates for the return of the?
Yeah, they've shifted. I want to say it's May. It was gonna be April and they've moved to May. They will be coming back, one other thing is we are in the first phases of the finalizing the business sentiment study that Jeremy Sage will be running. That is being done very much by survey broadcast. So we are trying to get Grand County or people who do business in Grand County replying to that survey once the study's ready to go. And then I'm starting to have the initial talks with Mitch Nichols from Nichols Tourism Group about the visitor assessment studies. So we're looking at comparables and what the stratification data that we want out of that is. And we were on an April schedule, but it's been moved to May. Those dates are on the site. In that, they will start doing the report out of what they learned in the user forum, as well as they will, I think they're are they gonna attend or are they gonna present something to the commission at that point? So there will be a open meeting, probably a workshop or something happens prior to the normal commission meeting where they will give updated status and what they're learning. So.
I think we're due to have, I think they're kind of targeting having a lot of the data pieces done in April.
Right.
So if we get that, we can be sharing it.
In the channels.
Yeah.
Great.
Wait, sorry, this is Kathy still?
Yes, the Better Destinations is the company, the project has been named Trail to Tomorrow, just to get rid of. And there's 3 entities. There's Better Destinations, which is the consulting company. There's RCA, the data, and then Nichols Tourism, which is the tourism.
So on the survey, because they haven't done that yet, right?
It's
Or they've written it?
it's written and there's QR codes sort of sprinkled around to try to get people to sign up. and participate.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I just hope that we're gonna capture, like we've talked about a little bit, but my big concern has to do with how is the product mix meeting demand, right? And so part of this survey is a chance to make sure that we're getting really good info about why people are coming and what they're doing here.
That'll be in the visitor study.
Okay,
Yeah,
and so
that'll be
that's
the
the one
visitor,
that
so
isn't
that one is
done
being
yet.
formed right.
Okay,
now,
great,
yeah.
so there's still time.
Yeah, this is for people that own businesses, the sentiment of owning a business in a tourist economy,
Okay, so,
tourism and local.
because I really believe that a lot of the businesses or the data and the information and the way people are talking on the chamber and all of that, there's a lot of businesses who do not have information about visitors.
Okay.
So there's gonna be a real opportunity to share and educate all the businesses about what people are really coming to do here.
For sure.
And that's gonna be really helpful. The businesses wanna move the needle, but if they're pushing on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So I think that if there's a chance to, give input to what goes into the visitor survey, I think that is a mission critical opportunity that can really make a difference. So that everyone is really understanding what our problem is.
Been a big focus of
Yeah.
why the project's being done. in the first
That's
place.
noted and we'll make sure that it's
Awesome.
covered on that.
Okay.
Also, don't we have, because they have met with this group before the EDAB, and so we can make sure that that's another voice in the survey.
And we can probably share some content. There can be some Zoom recordings of some of these discussion groups from this last time. So if there's interest in viewing those, I'm happy to just work with Kathy to get that out to everybody.
Right.
If you like. And then for the business sentiment study, I think those questions were sort of dialed in, so I'm happy to circulate that as well. If there's any feedback, that's of interest.
So I'm curious, what was the attendance like at these meetings?
The,
I went to one of them. Some of my staff went to others, but I was curious.
the table forms were within the desired range between 7 to 15. The ones that were disappointing were the open forums. And that was one where, and we talked about that in the wrap-ups, is we did everything from radio announcements, posted blasts, and it was just one that wasn't well attended. The first night we were up against Science Moab, which shame on us, but this is also following a commission meeting where you had hundreds of people turn out, so
Snuck up on me all of a sudden.
yeah,
I was
we
like,
like,
"Lord,
we either need to have
PhD
something,
meetings on my calendar and
yeah.
snuck up on me.
The thing was, is like, meetings in Moab pull out big crowds if there's something controversial. This is one that I was surprised because you never have problems having people tell you what they think or complain, and this was the chance where we invited a lot of people, and it was low turnout. Now, the key in that is it was designed for discussion, and a discussion in both, you were at the nighttime, right? Or were you the next?
No, I
day?
was at the next day.
I
Okay.
was at the night.
Yeah, the discussion points did track and gave some good discussion points, but nothing in there was designed to be a significant sample data point. So,
It's been a struggle with the chambers as well, like, you know, you have businesses complain about stuff, but then when we actually ask for surveys and ask for input, nobody shows up to voice, nobody answers the surveys, it becomes a really hard thing as you guys want change, but no one's willing to
yeah,
show up, I don't know how
And I
to
took
combat this.
yeah, I took that as a data point, is that, you know, an open forum is, you know, we didn't have good participation, so.
You just have to say that you're holding a vote about whether you're going to ban or fund off-road activities.
Ooh, I offer.
Yeah.
And offer.
Then,
We didn't make a big
and then
splash,
just tell them
but
it's been
but
postponed.
we did have food. And it worked out well, because everyone got 2 pizzas.
Yeah, those general meetings are really, really, really hard, and I do them in other places, and I know, so that is sort of typical. I've bought way too much pizza also. But I think that on this visitor survey, we might want, I don't wanna like totally light a fire, but I definitely think that when we title it, part of it is people they just don't, it's sort of when you say, come, it's too broad. And so maybe we could say, you know, future trail opportunities for everyone, or so, make it a little more like targeted so that people are like, wait, this is like, they get triggered, like trails, I care about trails, I'm gonna come, or whatever, something like that. Just to try to get more people, but I thought that the discussion that was had was really good, and the people that were there were pretty knowledgeable, so that I think that Kathy and her team kind of got what they needed.
Yeah.
The discussion roundtables were extremely valuable. The topic specific, industry sector specific ones were really valuable. And those would be the ones, the Zooms that I would share, I will promote sharing for you to listen to.
Oh, that's great. I think those are way
The
better.
community open forums are what we were talking about that was poorly attended.
I will say, every one of those user forums, you could walk out and create what you think is the strategy for the economy here, and they're all disparate. And, this is good, because this isn't combined with the ones we had at the previous. And Sky has negotiated that we're actually gonna add some that they didn't have in their original scope of work, so I think we're gonna have 4 more, is that correct? So we will, on the user forum, we're even getting more special user group, including the education piece, and some others that, but without going into conclusions, without sidetracking this meeting, there were a lot of really good points made. One is, you know, learn what your community does best. one thing is we have one of the best search and rescue entities in the country. You know, there may be opportunities for Search and Rescue Institute or combining that. We have guides. Our guides are some of the best teachers of history and geology. We are learning that Science Moab is huge in what makes up this community. So there are some great attractions that we can have. Then you go into the art side and you find out, you know, the history of why art was so big here, that people were living here cheaply and could really participate in an art. I mean, I went right to the Laurel Canyon model of, you know, the seventies. That's where all the artists were going because it was cheap to live there. Now, I'd love to have a place in Laurel Canyon. So when we're at that teetering point, I mean, we all know what's happening with land costs and stuff. And so you look at that and then the cultural, you know, there, we realize that there's huge opportunities there. So I'm kind of excited when this all gets put together, that the list we're gonna have of things that we can pursue and the tactics to put in a plan are gonna be pretty exciting.
Michael, do you have thoughts about how to reach a broader audience from, you've done
No, I mean-
community engagement for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, it's difficult, you know, we talked about this the other day with our group, we had the downtown dispersed parking meeting, and before the meetings, we always say, how many people think are gonna show up? Get everything from, I don't know, 2 to 50, you know, and I think we had about 30 people show up for that. I don't know what the secret is, I think people have to be interested, first of all, and even if you advertise everywhere and everybody sees it, if they're not seeing that nexus between them, their lives, their livelihood, their recreation, and what's being talked about, then probably aren't gonna get too much engagement.
Yeah, one other thing I'll add to this is we had the hotel group there too, the hoteliers. And I continue to be amazed that we don't have a restaurant contingent and a hotel contingent. I mean, I'm surprised that we don't have a hotel contingent breaking our door down saying, go after these illegal VRBOs. And one thing that came out of this that we'll pursue is the New York model. There was an increase, the data set we're getting is showing there's an increase in VRBOs in the county, which is interesting because there was a moratorium. So we've got to go understand that. And this happened in New York, and the way they went after it is they started matching who was signing up for VRBOs with who had VRBO licenses. So there may be opportunities here, but one thing that I asked for that we're going to get that's different in our data set is our data has been specific to Grand County. And I pushed but I think I made my point with the team is you've also got to give us the data from San Juan County, because you can cross the street in Grand County and San Juan County is another VRBO, you know, high density model. So we need to be able to understand what the true hotel VRBO ratio is. Not just what's in our own county, because they're continuing to build over there. So this will be important as a data point. The more data we get, the better we can move forward.
Well, and the other problem I think with the hotels is that so few are locally owned. And the ones that are, there's a relationship between like the owner, the franchisee, the franchisor, right? And then do any of those people live here? And so I think there's a real disconnect on that. And I think that's where there's an opportunity to reach out to them and say, okay, if you're gonna get involved, like freak out about arches. If you wanna help in Moab, we need to teach them what they need to care about. We need to help them see what, I think there's I think that's a really important, if we could connect the dots in that way, that they start to really understand how the Moab economy works based on this visitor survey and other things, then they could be more useful players. But right now they're just like, sell more hotel rooms.
Well, And without, like I say, I know we need to move on, but I will say one red flag that did come out of these meetings is the change to air service here is a bigger impact than even I realized. So, for instance, the local economy, so people like my wife who work for a tech company, this was an easy model when they can get a direct flight to Denver and get back to a hub or get back to a campus. That's gone away. The amount of cancellations that happened immediately with a lot of our tour operators, our guide operators, this could have huge effect on the Rocky Mountaineer. They're not talking about it yet, but they are definitely, this is impactful in a big way. We need to understand that this change to our air service is going to have a material effect on what's happening here, both in the tourism and local economy. So without going into a big discussion, I'm just putting that red flag up that we had kind of modeled it, but it's a lot bigger than I realized. So keep that in your mind.
None of that's a sidetrack.
Okay.
That is really important.
Okay.
Any questions, any other thoughts?
From an airport board standpoint, that's one thing that like I continue to bring up is why aren't we going after bigger grants to expand our airport? You know, having an airport that's more like a Durango airport, like why are we not closer to that size? Because then we can attract some bigger air carriers. It's not where their head is.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and Mitch and I have talked a lot about this. We have a hotel model here that is basically the hotel model you'd have for a business community. So you had people coming in for conferences, big things. The fact that we don't have that, that we're hard to get to, now we're getting harder to get to for the people that just want to come here. As well as there's talk of, you know, in the legislative body right now of tweaking the TRT, maybe raising it. Well, if you've looked at cities like San Francisco and stuff, that tax model wiped out a lot of the convention business there. So we are doing a lot of things to deflect that income coming into our county. So again, just red flag from the economic side.
Good, thanks. So we'll look forward to the possibility of seeing some of the roundtables online, and you'll let us know
Get
when
that out.
when they are there. That's great, thanks. Michael,
Yes.
congratulations on securing funds for what I assume is to be a continued work on the dispersed parking.
Yes. And thanks to the EDAP for supporting that. So we did get $600,000 grant from the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant, GOEO. And which is a big win because they had made a big deal about the fact that only one other community, or maybe, I think it was just one other community, had received that full amount before. So I think we did a good job. I think part of it was, even though the county didn't apply with us, the county supported us, or EDAP supported us. And that showed that there were two jurisdictions who were really pushing for this. And I think that might have had something to do with why we got $600,000. So that money is gonna go towards amenities for downtown dispersed parking. That project is beginning
Now,
next week. Yeah, it's starting,
I know.
it's getting going.
It's happening in front of my office.
Yeah, so we shortened the time frame though. Just one of the things that we did was shorten the time frame from the estimated 16 months to about 6 months. The paper printed something that's a little confusing. It said that the construction would be 6 months and then the landscaping would be another 8 months. That's actually not the way it is. It's gonna be 8 months total with landscaping. But it might be 6 months, then a little bit of a break, and then some landscaping after that. 193 new parking stalls over 11 blocks, a lot of other amenities as well. So we're really looking forward to getting started on it. So.
I want to compliment the team that you have there with you too, because just as is true for Shaley, we're affected by our front door. And I had a very good, concise explanation for why the courthouse had got the parallel parking and why we got a skinnier road. So that was really helpful.
Good.
And it didn't reduce the temperature among the team, but it was really helpful. So you had good people there.
Good, thank you.
We'll survive it.
I wanna move. I don't need to be on Center Street.
I'm on Mill Creek for crying out loud, like,
I'll take that
It's just-
all day
oh,
long.
one disaster after another, now we have gravel everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
See, you can always get people to attend if you have a controversial
Talk about
or
parking.
sensitive.
Can I ask, have they ever considered putting in parking meters? Pay for parking?
I'm too new to answer that question. Ever? I don't know. In the last 6 months,
Yeah.
no.
They have.
I'm sure that they have. Every downtown has probably considered it at one.
When they first, I
Abe
mean,
would
Karen Goodsman is a great person to ask about this, cause she has a lot to say about that was originally part of the plan when she was still on city, is what about making parking paid? And I'm pretty sure one of the big reasons was because Main Street, UDOT said no. But I could be wrong on that, but it's been talked about
And talked about.
a lot.
It would really, originally had meter parking downtown. And then back in, I think, late fifties or sixties, early sixties, they got rid of it. But I think it's time.
I agree. I think it is time.
It's a controversial thing. That's the kind of thing you'll get people coming to a meeting for.
I'll be at that meeting.
Yeah, I'm not saying whether I agree with it or not, but
Consider any handicap parking for?
there's additional handicap parking, yes. Van accessible as well as straight accessible parking. So I can't tell you how many, but there definitely is an addition.
It's just a big issue for my
Yeah,
clients.
yeah. Every block, I believe every block has accessible spots in it. So we'll be adding them on every block, so.
Congratulations on that, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, okay.
All right, now we're gonna get it this year. I don't know why, but for something.
Well done.
Thanks,
Well done.
thanks for your support.
We've had two information items and the next one is an action item. And the action is to nominate and vote on candidates for the chair and vice chair for this board for the next year.
I nominate Forrest as the chair. You do such a great job. If you will accept the nomination, otherwise.
I second, I thought I saw his head move. His head moved, your head moved.
There's been a motion.
But are you willing to
Yeah,
accept
for
it?
discussion, are you interested?
Are you willing?
I'm conflicted, but I am willing. I am willing. I will do it if that's the sentiment of the board. So, any other nominees?
I'd love to have you do it. as
Yeah,
long
you
as-
keep
As long
us
as you're,
moving.
you know, I mean, I
keep
think
the
somebody else can
discussion
step in if you're not, if you feel too busy or something like that, but you've done a great job and we have continued tasks to
Yeah.
take to the finish line, so.
I agree.
Well, thank you for your confidence. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Done, unanimously passed. Vice chair is open because we lost Karen and she decided not to return to the board. So nominations for vice chair. Self-nominations are welcome.
I nominate Melissa.
You haven't been here for a while.
Let's see, has she missed 3 meetings?
No, I have not missed her.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and
Are
seconded.
you willing? And would you accept?
Yeah.
She is.
Yes.
She's smiling.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Passes unanimously. And Shaylee, we've assumed you will continue as secretary.
You're doing such a great job.
You're doing
I'm just
fabulous.
not sure what it entails.
Participating,
I'm here.
listening, That's what it entails. Okay,
I'm happy to continue.
I'm sorry that I didn't get to talk to you before that. I poked my head in your office a couple times and you were doing your job, so.
It's weird.
Okay, so the next item is a discussion item. And you have some materials in front of you. Two documents from the commission. And it's, as we all recognize, we've had some conversations over the last couple of months about the representation on the advisory board. We've had some uncertainties about what is actually in the current bylaws and what needs to be added to it, or what needs to be to them and what needs to be changed. I just took a stab at it. In my work, I spend a lot of time working on bylaws and articles of incorporation, so I just took a stab at it and identified the items that I saw needing to be addressed, but there may be others. So
Are there two documents from the
Yeah,
commission, or is
Well,
the
it's
one
just,
from Forest and then the one from the
Yeah,
commission? Okay,
yeah.
I'm good.
you're good.
Yeah.
Did we get emailed the documents? Cause I didn't see it in the email. It's fine.
yeah, they were in there, just need some.
I've got her copy stuff.
Great.
So the first document that was included was the county's resolution for what was called the Economic Development Advisory Board. That was done in 2020, in May of 2020. And you can see that it reflected the requirement for the county to have such a board in order to qualify to apply for the rural county grants. And so that was set, and then the bylaws were expanded, revised. So these are the bylaws. The other was just the resolution getting to the bylaws. And unless anybody has other preference, I suggest we go through article by article. And at this point, not wordsmithing, just simply identifying areas that we will want to focus on. And then after that conversation and summarizing that conversation, maybe two or three of us can work on the wordsmithing that needs to be done, or that we believe needs to be done. And then I assume this will have to be reviewed by the county attorney. And then we would need to respond to any corrections, changes, or additions he makes. And then it would be approved by the board and then go to the commission, correct? Okay. We're not gonna change Article 1. Article 2.
I mean, the one thing that I thought of here is, it explicitly states that there's an advisory purpose. There's a part of the Rural County Grant Program, very clear. Then it states there's an advisory purpose for the Economic Development Department. I mean, for consideration, I put out there that we are an advisory entity for the commission as well. That we advise the county commission on economic development.
Does say, and as an advisory council to the Grand County Commission on issues pertaining to economic diversification. Do you just want to change the diversification word in the very last sentence?
The last
The last bullet.
bullet.
But I almost want to get rid of the word diversification just to
Oh,
economic
no, you're
development.
right. Sorry, I didn't see that.
A good call. I agree with you that we should be, but can we change the word diversification to development?
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think that's kind of a, I don't know, almost kind of a outdated word. I mean, in that what you want is
Development.
yeah, I mean, if we have the choice, it would be good to change it, because I think diversification, first of all, it creates a a binary thing between recreation and all other businesses. And of course, like accountants and dentists, dental hygienists, and all these people are also dependent on the recreation.
Well, and
Yeah.
there's a huge negative connotation based in the last few years.
Yeah.
That's splitting our community up really bad.
Yeah,
Well, let's step back for a moment, and diversification doesn't need to be here because that was the focus. That was the link to the Rural Counties Grant Program, which was to be funded through, which was to be determined by the Community Economic Board, which was specifically created for the Rural County Grant application process. So in one sense, we could take out the word diversification, and perhaps this final bullet is really the purpose.
I agree with you because that whole segment is vestigial to the extent that they took away the funds that they were meant to address.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
So
right.
kind of the purpose totally,
The
this is that nice little vestigial film.
one thing I would say is that, I mean, I think that taking away diversification and just having the word development in there kind of takes us, I mean, I think that part of the reason diversification came to be so important was out of the groundswell of concern that this was a solely tourism-driven economy, and all we were doing, if we were just promoting development, meant doing more and more of the same, you know, and there was pushback from the community and a desire to have other things happening as well. So if we revert to just the wording of development without having some sort of, I mean, it could be a different word, you know.
but sustainable.
Sustainable development helps with that for sure. Development and inclusion helps with that. You know, like, I think there are lots of ways to say it, but I think that, I mean, it's such an important thing in this community to be saying that we're trying to do it in a responsible way. We're trying to develop in an inclusive way. We're trying to develop in a sustainable way.
So almost like on issues pertaining to sustainable economic
Growth.
or
Health,
economic health.
sustainable economic
Health.
So,
prosperity. I don't know. I mean,
I am
I'm
a
just
prosperity
saying,
nut.
growth and diversification are both trigger words. And so is
Right.
development, really.
But prosperity.
Sustainability.
So
So is
sustainability.
sustainability,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So-
to,
I'm a huge fan of prosperity, just because it's more of the language of what the state offices use, the governor's offices use. I feel like it would bring us more into
pertaining
alignment
to
with
economic
other.
prosperity.
Yeah, pertaining to
Sustainable
economic
economic.
prosperity.
I think we
Love that.
don't like the word sustainable.
We don't, sustainable growth, diversification are all
I don't
kind of
think
have
so.
baggage.
Yeah, I think it's,
Well, people go sustainable and think you're talking green. And you're like, that's not what that word means.
Sustainable, and I think scalable and self-propagating,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's the trigger that most people
Agreed.
hit.
That's what I meant.
What about health? So like healthy, yeah, just economic prosperity. I think that's a really strong way to say it.
I think so too.
Just change the word to prosperity.
okay, it's a good thing we're not wordsmithing. But this is,
Good thing.
this is, this is.
We're sensitive right now.
It could have gotten really granular. for us.
No, that's all we got. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Hey, we're having fun now.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah,
No, this is
remember,
not an argument.
everybody's here.
You're welcome.
Just don't end in
Yeah.
a preposition.
Okay.
I don't know. I like ending in prepositions.
You know, these first three bullets are really, they're just process.
Yeah, that's our job.
They're just process. So can we consolidate those and simplify them?
Apply for the RGCP grant and choose which projects to fund and how the reporting should be completed.
Something like that.
Yeah, consolidating those first three makes a lot of sense.
Okay. And then bullet 4 is really part of the effort to create economic prosperity. Right?
Yeah, we're gonna
Those
get rid of that.
again are the actions required that the department, the advisory board, the department can undertake.
So we almost need to reword that bullet as well.
Mhm.
well, is this something that the the board does.
I was gonna ask, when do we review ordinances to identify the barriers? Like, is that bullet even
I think,
part of our job anymore?
You could take out ordinances and say reviewing barriers.
or just.
Isn't that kind of part of
Well, I
us
think-
being a resource?
I think, if I had to guess, the reason why I was put in there is because ordinances relate to policy decisions that the county commission or council is making. And this board could review those and give feedback on whether or not they feel like it would be good for economic prosperity or not good, bad, horrible.
Well, that's what I'm asking on bullet 5, doesn't that kind of incorporate that into that? For serving as a resource?
But yeah, I
We
guess,
just slightly change the beginning of that bullet of saying, you know, serve as a resource.
well, the reason why I brought it up is because maybe this is something that we should be doing. And if we did take it out, it probably, since I don't think we're doing it now, probably be lost for good.
Yeah. I mean, whether those last two get compressed into a single bullet or not, I don't have any problem with that either way, but I actually think, I mean, listen, as we moved away from having TRT funding, we gained some time, right? Like, let's use that time well to advise the county as well as we can,
So what would
what they
that,
can be doing.
what
So
would
if
that
there
look
are,
like?
I mean, it would look like, what I would imagine is we really, before we take that on, we let this strategic planning process play out.
Yeah.
And then we ask ourselves, to fulfill this strategic plan, what changes to ordinances need to be made? You know, what could we suggest in that way?
I like that.
I love that, it feels like such a big monster, where do we start?
I don't know, we could take the next 3 years to do it though.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, it is a big
That's
monster,
super
but
big.
like.
I'm like,
let's-
whoa, where do we
let's
start?
do a good job, like, let's.
I like it.
The
like
thing
being
I
more
would add
involved.
is reviewing, I mean, you could say reviewing legislation, policies and ordinances, but you might consider saying reviewing policies and ordinances, because a resolution's not an ordinance, but a resolution could certainly impact the way the county functions.
Right.
Well, and one thought is when they have new things on the docket that are gonna directly impact the development, maybe it should be being talked about in these meetings of like, hey, this is on the docket for the county. What
Yeah.
are our thoughts?
Like maybe county staff could push those things our way when they are coming up so that we can be reviewing them.
Yep, this is Elisa here. I was just gonna chime in to say,
Thank you.
I definitely think that language should remain in some form, just because, for that exact purpose. So that when there are changes to ordinances or new ordinances being considered that could affect businesses, on the ground, that does happen. And we just had an example of that last year with the, proposed changes to some requirements for noise buffering and things like that kind of caused a big uproar and ultimately didn't go through. But it was something that probably should have come to you guys first for kind of chiming in, giving feedback, and maybe it wouldn't have blown up in the county's face so bad. But yeah, I think it's definitely a function that from our department, we can, and my role being on this board is to bring those things to you and have you weigh in.
Maybe even adding an agenda item that every month it's that we give her a chance to say, okay, what's on the docket? What do we need to be reviewing as a board so that we can give feedback to the county commission?
Yes. Lisa's been very consistent in attending meetings and being aware of things, so that would make sense.
But what about like proactive things like that are not necessarily coming up for a vote? Like this whole airport thing. Which I know nothing about, except that it was a lot easier to get tickets before and now you can't. So, but if that's something like that we have a concern about, so it's not necessarily an agenda item, but is it in our, can we make it so that we could bring to the county's attention? Not just ordinances or legislation or policies, but issues that are of concern.
I think so directly. And the way that I would frame it is it's almost like a metaphor for me with the private sector. if you say, we're gonna give your department X amount of money so that you can accomplish these sets of things, and then they put that in their budget, and then a year later, they come back and they say, well, we weren't able to deliver those sets of things because the marketing department won't talk to us. The development staff said that they couldn't get to our project and do any of our development or whatever. And have you known that, you never would have given it to them in their budget to be able to execute on what they said that they could execute. The same goes for grants. If you give a housing grant and there are 3 things that are standing in the way of that affordable housing project, if you don't remove those barriers, any funding that you give to any of the projects with that standing in the way, they're not gonna be able to deliver. And you should have allocated the funds somewhere else, I think. I don't know.
Well, just, maybe we just want to say advising generally on issues of Grant County, or can we do that?
Yeah, I think number 4 certainly is responsive to ordinances that are being processed, but number 5 is proactive, and it says, as an advisory council to the Grand County Commission on issues pertaining to economic diversification, and whatever that's gonna end up being, that's pretty open.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we're good.
What do you guys think about, I'm just looking at section 1 versus section 2. The way we're talking about them, it's like they're just one section.
Yeah.
That's a purpose. Maybe we combine those 2 into one section. And then, I mean, the first statement could be like an intro, but then those other, the rest of that paragraph should be bullets just like everything else.
I would like to robust our meetings. That would be cool. We'll start talking about this stuff.
So you were saying make sure that the reader sees the scope and scale of,
I think so. I mean, so I find exactly what Chris was saying, like, I think they needed to be bullet pointed out on maybe that last one. But maybe we get more specific, not less on these things. Right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, I mean, the general purpose is that this board has been organized for further economic development, workforce opportunities and business services across Grand County, period. That's the general purpose. And then part of this specific purpose, and I wouldn't even call it that, I would just call it all purpose.
Yeah.
But you could then start bullet pointing the work in the rural county grant program, the advising, the role as an advisory body for the strategic direction of the economic development department, and then the other bullets that we've already discussed. Right?
yeah. Not too bad. Sounds good. Chris, you want to take a stab at that?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it steps on toes too much. A lot of these other things that we might think are, you know, they affect economic development, absolutely. But like, how do we talk about things like the airport without stepping on the airport board's toes? You know, like how to, that's all like been running around in my brain of like some of these things like.
I think it comes to us a little bit because the reason why I think it's so much on the radar is because Red Tail came and they asked for a grant and we recommended that they get a grant or, you know, I mean, they're kind of raising the issues. But I think you're right, like for us to go, hey, let's look for something else.
I mean, cause I'm on the board and I constantly am like, why are we not like going for these goals? But
Well, I
you know,
think,
there's not a lot of drive.
I mean, the role of an advisory board in general is to say, hey, heads up. This is a thing we're concerned about. And they can come back and say, drop dead, where there's nothing we can do about it.
They can.
That's fine, you know, but because we're not telling them what to do, we're just saying, heads up, there's concern from an economic development standpoint about what's happening with this air service. And they can say, we know, we tried so hard, or whatever, but we could maybe learn, well, what can we do for next time? Or how can we, you know, start to.
Or where do you guys need
I
help
have no
for
idea what
special
happened
call?
actually.
If I can interject, I don't wanna advise on how I'm supposed to be advised, but this department has one of the largest budgets in the county. We are tasked with driving a lot of things out of TRT. I wouldn't worry about stepping on toes. Let us be diplomatic, and if we're out of line, you can correct our
Okay.
department. But like the red flags I raised, I mean, I think we have to have we just have to be the squeaky wheel that does go and push those buttons, because I think it's important, so.
Well, so I think our purpose needs to say that, that we, not say squeaky wheel, but basically that premise of, hey, it's our job to push these buttons on purpose.
I mean, it's like, we're not running a national park, but a lot of people are on us about timed entry. Well, I was running a
I
national
actually
park.
don't get the choice.
No, but if I was running a national park, I would not be thinking of a bigger economy. Our department, what we're doing is supposed to be overseeing all these things and connecting the dots. So that's what I would just say is if you, like what you were saying, is if we need to be able to speak to other purposes, we're the ones that are looking at the bigger picture. So we should take that view in how we approach the year.
And it's a supportive effort.
Right.
Not a criticism effort. It's like, hey, this seems important, can we do it? No, or yes, but we need you to do this for us, like get us a grant. or
Well,
whatever.
maybe we need to be the ones lighting the fires and,
I mean, I promise we're not gonna build an airport, so we'll just help.
And I just want to add that on that point, that we shouldn't feel like we're stepping on toes when we bring up these things, but we should also probably be open to other, to other advisors, who are talking to about resources or other things that we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about development as well. So we can raise the red flags to everyone else, but we shouldn't miss them when they're coming to us either.
That's a really good point, Jasmine. Thank you. The one thing we have, grants was mentioned as something somewhere to find in here. And I don't know, I'm sure that different departments within the county organization do seek funding. But I don't know for what. And I don't know who's looking at Economic Development Administration and other federal agencies that might be receptive to some of the projects that we would be talking about. Now, I don't know if that's out of our domain or not, but as this board builds and moves beyond just the rural counties grant, why not be thinking about doing research and exploring other sources of funding, both public and private?
Can we put a pin in that when we get to section 2 also? So when we get there.
well, and maybe as part of our role somewhere, we write about being on the board, is that part of the expectation is we're bringing concerns that we see to the table, because I think sometimes I'm not sure what to put into this board, concerns I have from other boards I'm on, so
Yeah.
maybe that's part of our role here, is that we're bringing them to the table to talk about.
So on that, yeah, it seems like we need to get comfortable in doing what we're trying to do, like to be proactive and reactive to things. But, which feels like we're starting to get to, but that point about the grants. So I just finished this project in Gallup, New Mexico, and I was trying to make the infrastructure for this new recreation area that they're gonna buy from private landowner and, and I was like trying to keep it below $5 million, and it came out to nearly $8 million, the infrastructure bill. And the grant people, their COGS people, Council of Governments, they said, we don't care if it's 100 million. There is so much money for recreation infrastructure right now. I was like, great, then it's 8 million. So like, yes, right. It goes back to my product mix issue. Like there's money out there to fix things and to, especially front country things, which is where most people are going anyway.
That's just one.
And that's just
sliver.
one category.
That's
Well,
one category.
One thing is the performance prior to me getting here, because I've just seen the results, but the board has done a very good job in grant strategy, to the point that we were just recently awarded a grant that they said, when you award it, have the grant on a quick schedule, because we want to line you up for the next one. So this board has performed very well, much prior to my arrival. And so that momentum, I just want to make sure everyone knows that you're seen in very good stead with the rural county and the government, opportunity office.
Would it be worth having a working session, like a breakout session with these?
Pardon?
Because if not, would it be worth having a breakout session to have a broader discussion about what changes and what stays the same, or no? No? No.
That's a really good question. We did sort of get into wordsmithing.
That's why I'm asking.
And-
Because it sounded like it was just gonna be a, you know.
And I like the idea of a work session with anyone who wants to be involved in it. Does that make sense? Or we could call a special meeting. But there's a lot of words in here, and it takes a lot of time to go through, and if we just hit the highlights as we've read them, things we want to address. And then, you know, Chris is gonna jump on Article 1, Section 1 and 2, the only two sections in that article. It seems to me that
Like the purpose was probably one of our biggest things, but.
and we, I
Because
think,
we've talked a little bit about like what the board consists of,
right,
like what, 6 or 7 months ago.
yeah.
I think another one of the things is that we've also seen a big drop in participation. And I think maybe like fleshing out how many of those roles are necessary to keep. I mean, we haven't seen anybody from the planning commission for like several months. We haven't seen anyone from USU.
Isn't that Elisa?
The commissioner.
Oh. different people.
You know what I mean? We're just like missing a lot of those extra people on a regular enough basis that it almost feels like the purpose of them being on there isn't being served.
That was my section 2 pin that I wanted to put a pin in,
Is why-
because I do have some questions about that one.
So, and that may be an extensive conversation and a good one. So,
Be helpful to have that.
well,
We're
let's,
supposed to have a county person here.
Pardon?
right? We're supposed to have a county person here, a county commissioner.
well, Mary's not here. She's been the
She's in DC.
commission representative. We have Elisa and what's his name? And
What's their
Scott-
name?
Sky, sun, moon, whatever.
Oh, we should just call you all the pretty.
So let's move to membership. And a lot of the other items are, can we get rid of this? Do we need this? Do we need to add anything?
And in the commission meeting, Commissioner McGann is continuing to be the commission representative
Great.
at this board and, yeah.
Okay.
So you
So
can,
Chris is taking a stab at the purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you need any help, I'm happy to.
Thanks. I mean, I'll just take a stab at it and then I'll pass it around and welcome everyone.
Happy to help.
One final point on the purpose. We need to have the RCG grant program somewhere in there, but we shouldn't make it the top thing. That, you know, that's,
What is our suggestion?
I'm sorry,
The
rural county grant program.
The grant that the 200,000 that we go back to every year. Forget it.
Okay, Melissa. Article 3, membership eligibility and membership.
Okay, so this is a broader question. There's like an AU Economic Development Department. I agree with what Jasmine said, and where this gets really tricky where grants are concerned is for some of those larger grants that I think that we should be looking at. We know that you're one of 4 containers. You're either a government entity, you're a higher educational institution, you're a nonprofit, or you're a tribal entity. And I feel like by not consistently having a representative of workforce services and also USU, we're losing those containers, number one, on the grant side, which I think is really, really important to your department. But I think the second piece of that too is I feel like we're missing that critical information about workforce services development, meaning our numbers are skewed. So when I go on, I can get data from the state of Utah that's basically over, like only a quarter behind. So I feel like it's almost like having real-time data. But we do a lot to skew those numbers. So for example, we skew for seasonal unemployment. We don't report that. So when we show unemployment, we don't count seasonal unemployment. So our unemployment is a lot higher even than we think it is. Do we have people with disabilities? Do we have people that are going through rehabilitational things that are looking for opportunities? You know, like not having that data and that information as part of this board is a huge bummer. And I also think, and this is my third thing, and then I'm finished with my 10, I promise, is with USU, the way that the grant system works and the federal grant system works and how we're all working together to be able to do this economic development thing is there's this assumption that we've got our higher educational institution that's doing feasibility studies and providing data and working for the community to be able to do that in partnership. We're not really working that way if we're not really talking to them, but the economic development department maybe. Like you guys may be meeting with them daily. We just don't have exposure into that, or same thing with workforce services. And I'm thinking that I think it's really important that if not only do we keep it in here because we need it, but also we really communicate that intention and that purpose. Because I know USU gets a ton of grants that we're probably not even aware of, and you guys may not even be aware of, that are for workforce development and economic development and small business training and all of these different things that, you know, would be helpful to know. I know that we haven't had small business training person in place probably now for about 3 years, but we keep giving grants and we've paid for that position for the last 4 years. Maybe the chamber could be doing that for us. But we don't know that because we don't have that consistently represented on the board.
I'm just slightly confused. USU as a resource to,
That's the SBDC has historically been a huge part of this.
yeah,
But we haven't had one since Beth and Q retired. We haven't had an SBDC representative.
oh, right. Yes.
So entrepreneurship. So if we want to talk about economic development, we have a long tail in our county. So it's kind of like tourism and then businesses that are driven by tourism, which is city market, right? We wouldn't have a market the size of city market with that, right? So it kind of feeds into that. But then under that, after Synergy, we have a ton of businesses with just like 10, 12 employees, right? SBDC and giving them the support that they need for strategy, advertising, legal services, marketing services, advice, you know, making sure that our entrepreneurs have that support system in place. That's huge. And we're funding positions to be able to make sure that that happens. And it hasn't been happening consistently for years. That's important, I think.
So I'm on the advisory board for USU. You know, we were having this discussion just the other day about an SDB,
I know, sorry.
small business development person. They haven't had one for a while, and so they're looking for somebody, and I agree.
Their partnership is invaluable because they have data, they have research grants, they can give us, we would be able to say to them, we want to study X, Y, and Z, and they would be like, oh, we already got a grant for that.
Is there a representative? we could ask?
Once Kathy's
You know,
on.
we need to get Ben up there, and the next meeting will be, I think, in March, so,
There's someone I would love to get from there if anyone knows her, and I would even go talk to her. I would go chase her down. Who is it? She's over the technical training programs. So like welding and,
Are you talking about Rachel?
yes.
Yeah.
Rachel
Rachel Santa,
Stanton.
who is
she just moved to
Logan. The mothership called,
I called her.
the mothership called her.
But we were,
Which is
you know,
exactly our problem with Utah State.
we were talking about programs, you know, I mean, what can we
Yeah.
broaden the scope of USU?
Well, and how do we bring their knowledge into our board?
That training program, so the reason why I light up when you said huge opportunity, we have search and rescue. I get goosebumps when you say that because we've got a whole season where we have inventory of hotels, people to stay in, restaurants they can eat. We're paying for that off-season. All of those providers are paying for that. For me to be able to come in and study something that I'm passionate about, like search and rescue, EMS, whatever, I get to go hike. I get to go mountain bike. I get to do these things while no one else is around, and I get to do it in this really sexy place and stay in a hotel that off season has no bookings or whatever. Think about what that entails. Workforce Services has a huge training facility, and they have all the grants and the funding to help us with that training. USU has all of the people, the staff, whatever, and needs to fill that beautiful facility. What a better way for us to be able to use excess capacity off season with something that's non-controversial that also supports tourism. That's amazing. And if we had two bodies that were sitting in those chairs of brains that we could pick from those two organizations, we could write for grants tomorrow and have an unparalleled emergency search and rescue
Conference.
training,
Yeah.
conference.
They get to learn from the best.
Whatever, I mean, that's super sexy,
area.
come and do the higher training, like the advanced certification stuff. In an amazing tourist town off season and stay in a great hotel
So how?
where you're getting the
but-
middle of the
There's
day.
actually a ton of topics,
So-
not search and rescue, just general.
Just an
That's
example,
just
yeah.
Management and land
One
managers.
sliver.
Well, so we're saying that in membership, you're wanting a Utah State representative.
And I
and
think these
workforce
guys
service
are written in,
representative,
yeah, let's
Yeah.
like,
There.
Didn't we have something
Yeah,
last?
we have one from
meeting?
the workforce, but we haven't
Yes.
specifically put like the local
So,
college.
yes, so Kelly from Workforce Services was a regular contributor online. And then she was called by her mothership to work on a project for a
And
year.
she wasn't
So-
local, she was being shared between a
Right.
bunch of
do
counties.
we have a local person
No.
here?
So,
For workforce?
For SBDC.
Workforce Services.
Either, we don't have either.
Kelly's local.
Yeah.
I don't think she lives here though, does she? Last
Yeah,
time I
she
talked to her,
lives
she
here.
said
she lives here,
Yeah,
she
she lives.
participates virtually.
Yeah,
And so-
she lives.
And
But she's not doing it anymore?
she's got this, I've reached out to her, I sent her an email. To ask her if that project is over and she would she'd be able to return to us. I haven't heard back
I
from
actually
her.
went to the office too to
Did
drop
you?
off my card. I couldn't get her.
So instead of
That is
waiting
the
till.
one- That's the
There we
one
go.
position we have to fill based on the mandate.
Exactly.
And I think.
They don't have to be from Workforce Services Department, but workforce specialist. Rachel Stenta would have been the ideal person. And Jeremy from USU is in Landing.
Yeah.
And he's really a tech, he teaches tech courses. So,
Who would be the
And-
person at USU that would be sort of the strategic person? Meaning, hey, listen, we need more students, or we have to have this threshold to fill our campus, or in order to justify our funding for X, Y, and Z. Like that person would be
It's almost
awesome.
like
We
they
got
have.
board
a
members.
program.
You got Christian is the, guy,
he's,
Brian,
He's the new Leon.
he's the new, yeah,
But just,
but then you've got Samantha Campbell.
Yeah.
what about having her be on the board?
Yeah,
She'd be a great liaison for
what's
that.
her role at USU?
well, she's basically running it.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd be,
Yeah,
a
the
great-
other thing to do would be to
Put the
do this
five-
more in a project-based way. Instead of asking if we're having trouble getting people to come to a regular meeting, it doesn't mean that we couldn't do a project with them. Like, we could reach out and say, hey, we want to do this project with you. I mean, it'd be great if they would come and if that would work, but if we come up with a really good project, like this, then we could go to them and say, let's do this.
Well, if we could get the top person or we could plug in, we have glaring gaps. It's not just search and rescue, it's the hospitality, which both the high school and the USU. I mean, we have a training ground. You could bring people from other USU campuses to teach culinary, hotel management. I mean, we're short workforce. We have, we have welding. I see more cool four-wheel drives and everything around here. If someone knows how to weld something, we should understand that VOTech and we should be plugging into all these and getting a pipeline because it's only gonna serve from our high school into our USU body and you know, the brain drain metric that everyone talks about, or the boomerang metric, that's something that we have a glaring gap with right now.
We do, and I feel like, and again, to Ashley's point, like, it's just a teeny tiny little sliver, but I almost feel like you could park the word destination onto two of the largest sectors for fundraising globally. You could do destination wellness and destination education, meaning anything that you want to train how to do is always going to be more fun if it's in a pretty place. And we get to control what times of year they come here. Destination wellness, listen, if I have to recover from surgery or drugs and alcohol or get, you know, Botox or some kind of a treatment or whatever, wouldn't it be nice to do that in a prettier place? By the way, the best time of year to get that done is during the summer seasons. You know what I mean?
Botox can be-
And I feel like if we had, and maybe
People like to
even
be
Colette
pretty.
Cox would be a good resource to be able to say to her, hey, listen, we really want to take some big swings. We've got some big hits and some big swings that we would like to take. Can you dedicate someone from the state workforce services who understands the programs, the grants that are available, some of the things to be able to sit at least temporarily on the board so that, you know, we can pick brains and they can listen for opportunities. Because part of it too, Ashley, is we want them listening because they might hear opportunities that we wouldn't know to take to them. And then the same thing with USU, because I do know that right now they're getting a ton of funding for things that they're doing for the county for economic development. But they're doing it in a vacuum.
Well, we should invite them to come make a presentation to us to start, like, hey, we heard you had some great stuff, money, that you were having. And we wondered if you want to talk to us about the stuff. So, money.
Well, couple questions, sorry. So, I mean, I'm assuming these types of discussions are part of our planning process that we're working on. So like, my big question becomes, these are great ideas, where do we start?
Yeah.
You know, like, how do we get that first conference in the shoulder season and in the off season? Like, cause I think these are huge opportunities. Where do we start? Do we start with Utah State? Is that our go-to? Is it with our planning that we've already, you know, a couple $100,000 into that we're working on already? Is that just become their focus and they're gonna give us some strategic planning on how to? That's just.
I mean, I think there's two different conversations happening, one about membership and one about strategy going forward. And I think we probably need to like have each of those conversations separately so that we can be thoughtful about them. I mean, a membership like the USU part or workforce development, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Like we don't even have a choice. That's by legislation. So we have to have a strategy to fill that position. That's, you know.
And I guess my question is about that then is how does it have teeth or carrot or,
Like how to get the person to show
yeah.
up.
Well, are we
Right.
too specific on who from USU has to be here? And if, I mean, why couldn't we have the top person at USU?
I think we could.
The local top, the
Okay.
local,
You'd want Samantha, you know, and that would be the one. The other thing with USU right now is they've just got a new president. So,
She's
and she's rolling out her vision.
Yeah.
So that might mesh real well with what you're talking about.
I think it might, and I think that for me, the carrot is that it's mutually beneficial.
Absolutely.
They've got a big, beautiful campus that is really expensive, that requires enrollment. I'm not seeing a ton of enrollment.
You're doing all right.
So but can we feed you?
Yeah.
well, I'd ask you to think it even one level farther is, I mean, I got interviewed today by someone at USU doing their doctorals, but they're in Logan. But Sky and I at the San Juan County Business Summit heard a keynote speaker that's now in their Price satellite. I've, like the rest of you, I've been in tech meetings all over the world. I've heard some of the top keynotes. This may be one of the best keynote talks I've ever heard. Totally centered around economic development in markets like this. If we can plug in here, it's a satellite system, can't we then parlay into the bigger system? And, you know, if you've got a tourism expert, it may not be the one in Moab, but it may be the one in Logan, okay? let's get that Logan person either presenting to us on Zoom or connecting and maybe starting a project there. Let's just get into their network.
That's the beauty of a land grant college, is because there are a lot of resources that are dedicated to them for a reason. And it's because their mandate is us. It's the communities in the state. That's amazing. I would love to have that.
So Dave, was your suggestion earlier that we try to get Ben or someone from economic development to speak at the next advisory board meeting to help recruit?
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Sign me up.
We can make it happen sooner. if you want.
It'd be great if we do it sooner.
So are there-
March is 2 months away.
Are there any changes we wanna make to the membership? Or we're all in agreement with we like the membership?
Well, Jasmine made,
I like your idea.
and first of all, Chris, thanks for your observation that we were
And facilitate.
commingling two different subjects. Because they were, because they're related. They're related. So, Jasmine, you made the point that we've got a lot of ex officios who don't attend regularly. And one of the points that concerned me in looking at the bylaws is that a quorum is a majority of the members of the board appointed and elected. So we don't really have a quorum right now. So one of the options is,
It's not just about voting members.
pardon?
It's not just about
It's
voting.
not just about voting members, it's all of the members who are on the board. Now, we could propose to change the language that says voting members. Or we could look at scaling back on some of the ex officios. There was obviously a lot of thought that's gone into this list of ex officios. But I think we have to look at one of those and come to some resolution. And Melissa, to your point, it's been a while, but we've sort of forgotten that we've given USU $400,000 for the SBDC. And we haven't really had anybody. Megan is still in Blanding or somewhere in San Juan County, and so she's not participating. So I think we need to really wrestle with somebody from USU that's not necessarily workforce services, because those are two different nominees. And then find somebody who can do the SBDC or just turn it over to the chamber as we've been doing.
We just have to find someone to hire. I just was wondering, with all of the grants we provide, usually we have reporting requirements. That's been one big question, is there's these looming $400,000 that just been not being utilized. Is there a time frame that then it gets pulled back to try to find a different avenue under a similar premise? We want to use it for SBDC purposes. We know we want it for business development. But if we can't find someone to hire, we might have to go a different route, right?
Right.
So what's our timeframe?
And remember, that 400,000 came out of the TRT diversification funds,
Right, so can
not
we
the
even,
rural county.
can we even use?
So maybe that's Ben's meeting with whoever he should meet with. When Christian's up here with Samantha.
Oh, why aren't you the SBDC? That's perfect.
Then I have one other question about membership
Okay,
voting. And this is a question because it comes from a place of ignorance, as do most of my questions.
Oh, gosh.
What,
Right.
is there a reason why the economic development department representatives that come are not voting members? And I say that because if we're advising the county commission on what projects they should be pursuing, and it falls under the purview of the economic development department's mandate, do they not have a voting voice in what
So-
they believe is
so
likely
in
to be
theory,
impactful?
Behind this, directors don't tend to vote because they have a bias, because they're the ones doing
Okay,
the work.
so he would be out. Does the department get a vote?
I mean, they are the department.
And that's a question,
Yeah.
by the way. I'm not
Most
advocating
boards-
for
So the problem
anything.
with the department is they report to me, right? So
So there's always gonna be.
Scott, you're all-
Got it.
all it's in
Okay.
your
Okay.
vote.
Circular really fast.
That'd be,
Yeah, it
that,
is.
that would be an awkward.
It's a circular thing.
So
'cause-
they advise us, I'm
Got it.
advising them, in
Yeah.
theory, like they do, they provide us with all of the content, and they'll also give definitions and explanations,
okay.
but at the end of
And
the
we're
day.
gonna check and balance to their work.
Got
So
it.
if they were
Okay.
voting too, it would be,
It's a better.
it's almost every board. Staff doesn't get to vote. I can't think of
They
a
just
situation.
execute.
Got it. Okay.
But obviously,
I
if
was
the
just
board is
thinking-
going in a different direction than the staff, you've got a big problem. So, you know, the goal
Got
is to.
So let's take a, Chris, go ahead and then let's take a break and summarize what we've been saying.
I mean, I was just gonna say that my sense would be that we should move on the side of redefining what a quorum is. So that
It's
we can,
simpler.
you know, have it be a quorum among voting members. And I guess I say that because, I mean, I'm thinking back to like previous meetings where we talked about the importance of bringing in a wide array of people, a diverse group of people to participate in these meetings. And membership within the board as a non-voting member is one tool we can use to do that. And so rather than limiting our ability to use that tool, I think we should just redefine the quorum and then do our best to use that tool so that we can build bridges and have more, you know, folks from around the community participating in this, the decisions of this board.
That's great.
I agree.
Okay. So we've addressed the quorum issue. Thank you for that. That's the most logical way to approach that. Let's go back to the ex officio. But I'm sorry, let's go back to the double I, voting member from the Utah Department of Workforce Services. If we don't have Kelly, if we don't have access to Rachel, then we need to fill that position. And
Could
you're,
Colette give us someone?
pardon?
Could Colette recommend someone to us?
That's, I think somebody mentioned that, and I think that's worth considering. Asking Colette if she can recommend somebody from the mothership somewhere within the Department of Workforce Services who can provide that role for us remotely.
Well, that's a voting member, but then the Utah State is a non-voting member, and I
Right.
don't love that. I think those should both be voting members.
See, I'm not sure about that. The Utah State, I don't really know, but they're kind of staff also.
It could be a conflict because they would be one
Right.
of the 4 containers that would be recipients.
Yeah.
Well, then
Right.
shouldn't Department of Workforce also be non-voting?
You're right.
Like they either both need to be voting or
Yeah.
both need to be non-voting.
Yeah. I think they need to be here, absolutely critical, just not voting.
So then voting is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 voting.
So I think one thing, just housekeeping,
Please.
I think it should be the board shall consist of at least 6 non-voting members. You know, because, I mean, even on the list, there's 7 non-voting members that are listed. So, and I think that's the spirit of it, right? Is that, we should have at least 6 of these, but if we have more that are non-voting, is that really a bad thing?
No, no, for the very reason that was said, more perspectives, inviting more people into the conversation and providing more expertise to us.
And then that allows you to anytime to allow more people to join as opposed to having to just stick to, well, we got 6, we're full.
Yeah, without having to change the bylaws.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
So let me make sure I've got the language that you were suggesting. The board shall consist of at least 6 non-voting members,
Right.
and it says no more than 7 voting members.
And I don't have an opinion on that part. How many voting members there should be? No idea.
One of the things we talked about at one of our last meetings was adding a representative from the not-for-profit sector. And we did not talk about whether that should, or didn't even explore whether that should be ex officio or voting. And
So
that's a whole year old.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So you just, the way you said that, it may sound like officio is a non-voting member. But on this list, two of the ex officio people are voting
Right.
members.
Right.
So,
That needs to be cleaned up.
okay,
That needs to be cleaned up. The difference is that they're nominated by the entity as opposed to approved by the, as opposed to approved by the
okay,
commission.
gotcha, their point, okay.
I would suggest that we move workforce out of nominated by Utah Department of Workforce Services to an appointed representative of the workforce. That gives the commission and us flexibility as to what, because then by law, we have to have someone representing, you know, a workforce development representative, right? But let's not lock ourselves into it having to be from one specific agency. Let's
But
give
if that's real
ourselves.
hard, like workforce representative, like that.
Well, USU is the other option, basically.
Right,
Right,
okay.
so we could have someone from USU or workforce, or if there's, I mean, Colette has talked about, like an HR agency around town or something like that being a third option.
So like get
But
rid
the
of,
two obvious ones are workforce and USU. I think it's just like, let's just be honest with the reality we face. We don't have someone coming on a regular basis from workforce, so.
we're gonna get rid of non-voting member by Utah State, and that's just one workforce, like representative.
Well, I think if we just make it a workforce representative in an appointed position, then it's up to this board and the county commission to make the final decision on what that looks like. I don't know what you do.
I know, I'm just saying, do we
with
get
the
rid
USU
of,
part.
yeah,
But I don't know that we want to be locked into it being USU as
That's a-
workforce
yeah.
either, right? I mean, that would just put us in a.
so do we say we could potentially appoint two?
Guys, it seems like we're having so much trouble getting them people. We don't wanna create more.
But we could, is what I'm saying, like we have the capability of having two?
I think Michael's language, if it's adopted, would give us the capability of doing that anyway, because we'll be able to
So
add
at least,
non-voting members without changing the bylaws.
okay, at least six
If
non-voting
that's,
members
if that's an acceptable language for the attorney and everything.
and no more than 7 voting members.
It seems like it should already be in there because it qualifies the voting members, but it doesn't say anything about the non-voting members. It seems like,
It just says 6.
yeah, exactly.
No more, no less.
No more, no less.
If I'd like, it's the great recommendation that the workforce development representative is a voting member, then appointed by the commission. So,
And just to clarify, and again, sorry, because it's not related to the thing that we're doing now, but it's sort of adjacent to. The difference in my mind between a workforce services representative and like an HR professional or someone from USU doing double duty or whatever. Is that they hold both the purse strings, the knowledge and the capability to do all of those really tasty training programs and apprenticeship programs. For paid apprenticeships, for custom fit training so for example, if we wanted to train outdoor guides, they do that at the cost of the state of Utah through that custom fit program, as long as there's an employer who needs them. That's like a really sexy knowledge set to have. And I always pride myself in being not the smartest person in the room. So I was kind of like, I
You're
like
in
that.
trouble in this room.
No, that's what I mean, it's like, because there are so many brains to be able to pick. It's not- Let's add more of them.
Oh, what about custom fit specifically? There's a ton of representatives that'll come down and do things, maybe one of them will join our board.
It's just,
Show up on
man, they have some tasty goodies.
I got it.
I mean, I think alongside the idea of membership, we should just be really thoughtful about suggesting when we have agenda items that we invite X, Y, or Z person to the next meeting, so that we get the knowledge in the room every time, you know, we need it.
That's
And that's
And
like,
on a project
we can do that
base.
in addition to,
Yeah.
you know, we don't have to ask everyone to be the hard thing about asking everyone to be a member is that they have to sit through 8 meetings where their speciality isn't needed in order to offer specialized advice in 2 meetings.
But
That's a
isn't
lot to
that all of
ask
us?
from the president.
I'm just saying, isn't that all of us?
But
We're the generals. I don't know. I mean,
I think we are, and I think there is, you know, like. I mean, everyone's serving on a lot of boards, but sometimes the best work gets done in committee, right, or in a project-based thing, so. I mean, I know we have to have these people by law, we gotta go scare them up somehow, but if we, you know, I think there's a real opportunity to reach out to people and say, can we do a project that has a start and a finish and
Well, can we add like a pre-agenda email that's saying, hey, is there any items the committee wants to have on the agenda? Such as projects or anything, so that we have input, we're okay with doing like a,
You mean recommending items for the agenda?
Yeah.
We can do that now.
what I'm saying, like just send out like a pre-agenda meeting of, hey, anything anyone wants to add to the agenda, so the project ideas. So that way we have some time to invite people. I feel like, you know, we're not talking about them till we get here, and by that time it's too late to invite them.
Logistically, does that work? Administratively?
it's really up to you all.
Okay, good idea.
Well, and also feel free to send the agenda item,
Yeah.
anytime you think of it.
And usually we have on our agenda, at the end of the agenda is consideration of future agenda items. So
Right.
we have one spot built in already, but building before is very good.
Okay, step aside. First of all, we're going to change the bullet about a Utah Department of Workforce Services. The language would be one voting member of a workforce development expertise appointed by the commission. Is that,
Appointed by the commission,
yes,
and they're voting, right?
voting, yes.
Yep.
That's what we've talked about.
Yep.
Melissa.
Appointed by the commission?
Well,
Well,
because we recommend it and then
Yeah,
they.
I see what you're
I
saying.
know, it took me a
Right.
second too.
Wait a minute.
Just like the rest of us, except for Shaylee, who's the.
Right.
I think we
well,
have
is
to
a
approve me too.
nominated member
Yeah.
by the,
They had to approve Dave and actually, it's
right.
the first meeting of the year, so.
We haven't resolved the issue about Utah State, whether we want to explicitly reference Utah State University, which I think, personally, I think makes sense. But others may disagree, but I have a land grant background, land grant university background, so.
I mean, let's just, so hypothetically, if someone from USU ends up being the appointed workforce person, we wouldn't have like an issue, would we?
Correct,
By having the listing of a non-voting representative, I don't think that's really a problem.
okay,
So as long as would be the interpretation of that situation, that person could fulfill the voting role and therefore we have that role filled, then it's fine.
so does that change our language here, Chris? Or move something from one place to another?
I mean, if anything, it's a question for like Stephen, you know, just a part of the sort of legal review. They're based on what the recommendations we're making. There exists the possibility that the workforce appointed rep could be from USU.
Right.
How would that play out? Do we need to change any language to cover ourselves in that
Okay.
case?
Okay. Are we done with membership?
So I just want to point out the membership, the only requirement for membership is in section 1, and that comes from the state.
Right.
Everything else is open for suggestion.
Right, exactly.
So hopefully the commissioners will see the logic in what you're suggesting.
Of course, I think there's still the issue that you brought up as to a nonprofit sector or social services representative. And the issue brought up at the last meeting with Joette as to city council representation. And I don't have answers for them, but I think those are important things for us to consider. I mean, my own opinion on the matter is just that we want to have effective communication with and cooperation with the city and social service sector across Moab. Those are very important to our mission. I don't have a specific opinion that we have to do it this way or that way, but you know, I do think those are really important, you know, sort of vital to our mission.
From the chamber, like, I think it's helpful to have all those things represented. It's nice to have. But if Michael doesn't come, because he doesn't have to come, if we, you know,
I
how
thought I
you.
had to come.
Shaylee.
That is the last time you've seen him.
Sorry.
We
Like him coming because it's very helpful. But like having someone from the city is helpful in these meetings.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and just so you know, we are committed to having some of the city.
Awesome.
We'll
But do we
continue.
put it in our bylaws that?
It is,
It says,
yeah.
elected official or staff representative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just side note, for February's meeting, we'd like to have an update on the strategic planning process.
Okay.
And whether that's a counselor or an administrator or you, that's something that we need to know what's going on there. And we want to, as we discussed when Joette was here, we want to, you know, continue to communicate our respective plans.
Okay.
And work across them.
So do we wanna touch base on the nonprofit part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other people's thoughts are, but
No, I think it's effective. We have a huge nonprofit community.
Yeah, as I was gonna say, the ratio of nonprofits here, and that it's a lot of what drives what Moab is, either if it's through culture, music, aid, we are like the nonprofit central.
I mean, I think it's also reflective of and important for us to keep in mind that economic development in a community with significant poverty means taking care of and creating opportunity for people that have little, not just growing, you know, a sector for a certain sector of the population. There obviously is massive overlap. That's why it's our job to be doing all of that at the same time, but having somebody that can help us do that with, I think would be fantastic.
So Chris has raised that and Shaylee has endorsed that. It's simple. We could add one non-voting representative of the not-for-profit or social sector.
I think, yeah, I like that.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they're also the key to conferences, just saying.
The key to what?
The conferences, like the Utah Avalanche people and you know, there's like, even the Youth Garden, I mean, there's so many different nonprofits and music festival,
Yeah,
whatever.
they basically run our arts, that's our whole arts culture is basically through the nonprofit.
Right.
For the
Lobby
majority.
takes care of all the people that have less.
Yeah, there's
Things like that.
definitely, but those people are, those topics are topics that would make good sense for a whole conference.
Right.
Okay, so we'll add that as an ex officio.
And I think there was discussion on maybe like removing potentially Ben for reduced numbers for quorum, right?
Correct, but, and the member of the planning commission as well. But since we've changed the quorum requirement, we don't need to do that.
What did we change it to? I misheard that.
Sorry. So it will read, the quorum for a meeting of the members shall consist of a majority of the voting members.
Okay.
Just a small point there on the nonprofit. I mean, I don't think it wouldn't be ex officio because it's, I mean, we'd have to go find that person. There's no board that can nominate. There's no board of all nonprofits involved that would nominate the person. So it would need to be, I suppose it would need to be appointed. I mean, they assume they would have to be approved by the commission at that point.
And I think they should be voting.
Yeah. All right. Time clock. We've gotten through the first 2 pages.
I'll go reserve the room till midnight.
And get pizzas?
That is a really unkind thing.
Much of the rest of this section is pretty straightforward. Any thoughts about the rest of this, section 3, 4, or 5?
No.
Any red flags?
Is 5 the one that said the initial 1-year term? Cause
That comes up a little bit,
thoughts on that
yeah, that comes up a little later, Jasmine.
later? Okay.
Yeah,
Does 5 give us the authority to change the non-voting membership already?
Yes.
think it does.
It kind of looks like it does. doesn't it?
It's already established in the binding.
I don't understand that, actually.
I don't think it allows us to change them to voting, it just says that
No.
we can change the categories.
But if we change, once the language is changed to at least 6,
Then you can,
then we can just add one.
yeah, you can just decide what
Okay.
categories they're
So,
coming from.
yeah.
Gives us the flexibility.
Yeah, so whether we write in the nonprofit
You're gonna need to figure-
sector one or not to the bylaws is actually
But we were talking about adding them as a
Right,
voting appointed.
voting, then we would just add it. Okay.
okay. Article 4, meetings of members. We address 5, which is the quorum.
The rest of it looks really good.
So this says we have to meet every month. Is that? Do we want to meet every month but have the opportunity to potentially cancel a meeting here and there?
Well, I think with everything we talked about in the first section of our purpose, in order to become a more robust board involved in economic development, and it sounds like a little bit more active of a role, monthly is probably the right direction to stay.
Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't meet monthly, but this says we have to.
We shall.
Yeah, so I think maybe something more along the lines of, meet monthly if we want to, but have the opportunity if,
Gives us an out though. I
yeah.
kind of want this board to be like, yes, get
Came up,
better in your.
I feel like that came up before and we tried to go less often and the shall got put in there to make sure that we didn't do that again.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like that becomes a really easy excuse of, oh, it's just, everyone's so busy, let's just.
Haven't we skipped a month in the last, I mean, have we skipped any meetings?
I feel like on the opposite, there's been like, since I've been on board, we've added extra meetings.
So many
We
special
did-
meetings.
we did skip-
So many special meetings.
We did, yeah.
We did skip one.
But that was because we had like 3 special meetings, and it would have been like 2 days
Exactly.
later. Like,
Yeah.
So, but that just goes to my point that, if it's rigid and says you shall, it doesn't account for special circumstances, like we met 3 times the month before,
Right.
so.
Assuming, I will believe that Jasmine said that was put in there, and shall is the language of a county attorney.
All right.
Because that's a lot stronger than will.
I'm wondering too, if there's a requirement for the rural grants program. I'm curious about that.
We could change it to something like 12.
You could share with another city representative,
we could
Michael.
say-
Six and six.
Jasmine, you were
No, I'm
saying?
I'm not trying to say we shouldn't meet every month, just to be really clear, I just think,
Yeah.
and it's logical that a board will have a month where they just don't meet. I mean, December, July are 2 times when boards cancel meetings a lot. And you want to have that flexibility, from my experience. at
So
least.
on our agenda, it talks about that we're gonna move those meetings away from the holidays.
Mhm.
What we've been doing in past years is we moved the board meetings so they fit in better in people's
Yeah.
schedules.
I've said,
Okay, okay.
Sometimes meetings get canceled and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, even if it said you shall. I mean, that it's just something that happens.
If you can't get a quorum, why do we have a meeting?
Can't get a quorum or there's nothing to meet about, yeah.
Well, and to Shelley's point, as the strategic planning process continues and comes towards a conclusion during the summer, or different months, I think we should plan, we shall meet monthly. And there'll be no shortage of things to address, to talk about.
I shall try to be here.
You shall try to do that. Okay, well, you have the city attorney check to make sure that they can hold you to that. Okay, anything else in section 4? Okay, section 5, Jasmine, this is where it talks about in section 3 at the bottom of the page, probationary periods. I don't know that we need that personally.
The removal? No.
Yeah,
They can-
section 3, tenure requirements and qualifications.
Yeah, we have too hard of a time just getting all the people we want regularly to put that 1 year stipulation. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Where is, maybe it's in the wrong place.
It's
Bottom of this page, right, this one, 1 year terms.
Just so you know.
That's like
I'm
a
off
pr-
the
yeah.
chamber.
I definitely
This year.
disagree with this.
you what?
I think this is just a ton of work for no reason. I mean, it, gosh, like,
Yeah,
what
I
is it?
agree
The point is if someone's not doing a good job,
that
they
they can get rid of them easier.
get rid of them more easily. How long are our terms anyway?
2 years.
Only 2 years?
After that.
Years.
Well,
It'll seem longer.
and at this point,
Things he should have said while interviewing you.
at this point, in other organizations, we would jump into a conversation about how the length of terms and how many consecutive terms. I propose we not talk about that right now. Okay, in large part to the point that we have a hard time getting people, but we can focus on getting the right people, the right voices at the table.
I'd love to sign y'all up for longer terms.
You're not a voting member.
Well, unless anything majorly changes, I'll throw my hat in the ring on a private sector at the end of this year.
Okay,
Because I will be off the chamber board. For at least a year.
okay. So,
20 minutes.
the one other thing that I identified is the sentence above the bullets above the middle of the page. The board will not recommend more than $800,000 of aggregate RCPG with it grant awards annually.
Yeah.
Because those get set by the state, by the program, and we may be looking for other funds. So, the second half of that sentence, is really another description of the qualifications or the, criteria for submitting grants for that program. So those could all go away as well.
I feel like someone important put that $800,000 number in there and they're not gonna like it if we take it out.
It's a requirement.
Yeah.
So,
What's
By
the
the state.
requirement? What do you mean?
if you go to the RCGP website, it tells you, you can't do more than the $800,000 aggregate is not. So it's part of the,
The
yeah, it's
originating
part of the
legislation.
program.
One of the challenges is when that changes in the future, inflation is a like reality. So then what happens to us? at that
You take
point?
that out.
Yeah,
Or
no,
do we just put the board
We
of
just take it out.
recommend?
Yeah, you take it out.
I don't
Yeah.
think I agree.
Do we just put, we don't recommend, we
If
won't?
we're already limited by the program itself, we
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
to.
We don't
Bylaws.
need it here. It's
And then
already
as the
under
program
state legislation.
changes, you just automatically go with that.
Totally.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay.
Do we need wording in there saying we will not go above what the state requirements are?
I mean, we
The
can,
state said it.
yeah.
It's just against the
So,
I
law.
don't think it's.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just looking like, are we gonna like,
It's just
is
duplicated.
Sky's gonna be on top of that?
And it would be,
Yeah.
it would be wasted work.
Oh, and I think,
Our bylaws
I
just
think
need
it
to
says
say
somewhere in
good job.
here that we will follow the guidelines
Be
of the
fair.
program.
Yeah.
So,
Be a good person.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. You know, the section 2, the reporting responsibilities, that's basically also embedded in the grant.
Okay.
Correct?
That's ugly,
You
by the
can
way.
take it out.
Everything in section 2 is everything that has not been discussed one time since meaning like, just even taking the USBDC thing, for example,
Or what don't we do?
there's no reporting. Like, are we supposed
But
to
we're
be tracking that
Required
down?
to report it.
How it's been spent?
Yeah, we do all
That's
that.
all the reporting requirements.
Economic Development Department has traditionally taken on the reporting
That's
responsibility.
what I'm saying, like, this board has not.
No, the board doesn't do
Ever.
it, they do it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not.
good
But
job.
we have to sign off on it, don't you guys give it to us,
Yeah.
and then we go, oh yeah, we approve it.
Yeah,
And then
because
these-
it's mandated. I think it's part of the mandate that the
Right.
approves the reporting.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the state law, look at it.
Yeah, so it seems like some of these things just go beyond what bylaws
Right,
actually
exactly.
are.
These
Yeah,
are
I mean, it
processes.
just
Yeah,
feels
exactly.
like
These are
that.
processes.
Yeah.
Nasty.
But again, this was done at the start. Okay,
Okay.
I'm looking at the clock
We're gonna give
for
you
everybody's
speeding.
benefit. We've eliminated section 3. It seems to me that section 4 could go on as well, could go as well. We've
So-
encountered the issue with members who miss 3 consecutive meetings. That sort of resolved itself. So the question is, do we want to keep that?
What happens if the board becomes unfunctional because people move away from Moab or stop attending and we can't get a quorum? And so there's no way to move business forward. What
I
happens?
think,
in that
I think
circumstance?
there's somewhere written in here, because I think we reviewed this, like maybe a year ago, that it was that we can technically vote to have someone leave, or no, I might be mixing up words. But, like, if someone moves, shouldn't we ask them to resign?
So there's a removal, section 5.
The problem is, I don't find the problem to be that people are moving away. I find the problem to be that they don't show up.
Yeah.
Or that they don't do the job they're supposed to do.
Reliability.
And so I think that having the 3 meeting requirement is a good catch-all because it's an excuse to say, you know, like, it seems like this isn't working for you and you
Right.
just violated this, so we're gonna have to, you know, but thanks for your service. And it's a lot less traumatic than having to vote to get someone off.
Yeah.
I think it's good to leave it in.
I kind of do. too.
Yeah, I think it sets an expectation. It's
Okay.
Yeah,
nice to
it
know what
does.
the
It's important.
expectation is. Yeah.
Mhm.
But this is gonna be the most sought after board, give it a couple years, everyone's
Oh,
gonna be
we're
on
making
it.
it cool.
That's so good. Although, we need
Yeah, after
snacks
they read
today.
these bylaws, everyone's gonna.
Hot damn, I wanna.
Put in the budget for the economic
Right.
development.
That's where the,
There, that we used to write.
Yeah, can we have like in our budget that we get snacks? For our 17-hour
budget?
long
We have a
meeting?
sure.
You said you have the largest budget in the county.
bring popcorn.
Yeah.
I
When
think, I
I,
think we should set the goal at after we secure a 7-figure grant, not from the rural county grants
Okay.
program, then
What
we
do we
have the
get?
license to ask for snacks.
so
I like
at
this
the
goal.
trail mix, trail mix,
Last year.
when trail mix first started, every time a new trail opened, Sandy baked cookies. And it got to the point that we were opening a new trail at every single meeting. I'm just saying.
I'm the
So
chair
that-
of Wabi and they're super broke,
Okay,
and I get snacks every
I
board
think
meeting.
this is a secretary job.
I will pick up snacks. From now on.
I will Venmo you for those snacks.
Put snacks in front of us.
okay. We're approaching that witching
Mhm.
5 minutes before the end of, before the time that we're supposed to be done. Any changes in the Article 60 officers?
No.
Okay. Article 7 is straightforward. It,
Sorry. I
Oh,
know
I'm
I
sorry.
said no, but on the secretary part, so technically the secretary has never really done any of that. So either we should probably reword that or I should start doing. I was wondering. I was just gonna skirt over it, but. I mean, theoretically, it should be the secretary, but I don't really have access to all their systems.
well, these were all days before Zoom.
Well, it says
and-
assisted by a county staff member, so, I mean, it would really just be technically your job to
Review.
make sure that you read the meeting minutes that are
Yeah.
put up and are happy with.
Which I
them.
do.
They're-
So, good point. We could just say, will assist the county staff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like just switch that around as like, they're there to like sign off and switch or
Yeah.
sign off and help.
Yeah.
Assist.
Now you know how I felt about the whole reporting requirements thing.
Exactly.
Wait.
Okay.
There.
Conflicts of interest, definitions, procedures. are all straightforward, and my assumption is they're all straight out of county policies.
Yep.
So, to recap, first of all, thank you for all the contributions and all the, appreciate your perspective on how things have worked elsewhere. You know, Jasmine's been helpful in identifying some things that others haven't. So Chris has been voluntold to work on.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. The membership section was a little bit more. I will make an attempt to capture what we've discussed, recognizing that I was also trying to participate, so I'll circulate that. For other, if people have other recommendations or recollections. We'll just move forward with the changes that we've identified, mostly the elimination of sections that don't make sense to us. And we can call it a draft for the attorney to review.
Yeah, sounds good. So, maybe it would be good if an acknowledgement response to Forrest's draft from everybody, just saying comments or no comments or whatever, just so I get everybody just sign off on it, and then I can circulate it over to
Okay.
Steven. Does that work? Just so I know everybody's seen it. Cool.
Okay.
And by everyone, you mean voting members.
Yes.
They shall contribute. So,
Well, we all know that's kind of a song.
And open to any other comment. Open to any other comment.
Well,
Of course.
so let's set a target date for those ideas to be sent so that we can have them in advance of the February meeting.
Put it on the email that goes out for your draft. With your draft.
Okay.
Or shall I send this stuff to you first and then
Yeah.
you'll circulate?
I'm
it with
getting the
everything
feeling
else?
that some delegation is occurring over.
Copying this guy and then other- so whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so. you'll
I'll
send
plan
it-
on doing that back.
Okay. And I'll have it to you sometime middle of next week.
That sounds delightful.
Oh,
Perfect.
okay. We did cover the open position. Can we quickly, may we quickly agree to get to reschedule the November and December dates? If we move them forward 1 week to the 20th of November and the 18th of December.
Yeah,
We-
good. That's great.
Forward closer to the holidays?
No,
Okay,
that's-
which way you going?
Moving them away from all
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Christmas.
We don't overlap city, the commission, do we? If we do that?
I'm,
As long as it's our commission dates.
No, they're not commission
Okay,
dates.
okay.
So 20th and 18th.
So those are Wednesdays.
we
Does
might
that
need
work?
a new location other than this room for the 20th of November and 18th, the same with the 18th. So we might just need to look for a different location or moving it earlier in the day.
Well, we're far enough out. I'm good with.
We've used the library.
Yeah, we can use
I
like.
can always use the grants. too.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that.
I'm gonna have a conference room and then we move it to the Western Spirit Building.
Ooh, let's do that.
And there'll be a kitchen downstairs. That's
Cool.
with roast.
Seem to cook your snacks.
Yeah, we can make.
I'm looking for a bigger.
But I wouldn't
commercial
have any
space,
furniture,
if anyone
but
knows of
hopefully by
anything.
December, we would.
That's awesome.
So I'm happy to host someday.
Do we make a motion?
Pardon? Yes, we need a motion to move those because, so,
I make a
You
motion to
moved?
move them by 1 week and location.
I'll second.
Dave, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Jasmine, Lisa, thank you for joining us. We are adjourned.
Thanks for us.
Everybody.
Thanks, Dave and Ashley. And you guys, I'm sorry, all the meetings aren't this exciting. He's like, what do you?
Wrestle with contracts every meeting.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, I don't know.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
1,500 square feet?
I have 1,100 right now, and I want 2 big offices and a conference room.
Lisa, I always think you're the smartest person.
Well, we have.
I am never the smartest person in the room by